Well, hello there. How is everyone? I hope you're all well on this beautiful, beautiful, fantastic, wonderful Wednesday, otherwise known as the midweek hump. You're looking at absolutely amazing, by the way. We're going to get straight into the meat and potatoes this morning because I'm live at 11:30 UK time, which is like 6 o'clock, 6:30 Eastern, I think, something like that. I think that's right. In a few hours, so let's crack on. Anyway, look, I did a video yesterday which touched on two things that I can't drop, and one of them being Brent Kopacker, and I'm going to come to that because I just want to justify my thoughts for a second. I'm not saying I'm right, but there's reasons behind why I can't let that drop, and I don't think I made myself clear enough yesterday. But there are three things that are going on in the Idaho 4 case. And it's things that we don't generally speak about. It's things that we don't generally heard being talked about, especially by content creators. We see it a bit in the comments, but people are so kind of, and I fall into this trap of speaking about the ludicrous ideas that we kind of miss talking about the actual real important things that we have to consider. And that is, look, it's just say, for instance, Brent Kopacker was innocent. That would leave a killer out on the streets, wouldn't it? 100%, because someone did it. Now, we can speculate on whether it was Brent Kopacker or Brent Kopacker was involved, or the fraternity, or it was drug-related, gang-related, anything like that. We can think all these things. We can think whether it was an inside job even, and on all of these things until they're proven absolutely otherwise couldn't be 100% taken off the table. Some of them will have a higher chance of being right than others. Some are just out far left, but even out far left things do sometimes end up being the right things. But I'm not saying that's in this case. But like I say, there are three things that we have to consider in the Idaho 4 case that are extremely important. For Brent Kopacker to be where he is, and just say if we feel, for instance, that he has been set up. He's been set up, which that's not beyond the realms of possibility, but there has to be some things to consider. And that is that law enforcement, this is number one, law enforcement are convinced that Brian's the guy. Convinced he's the guy. Now that means that they could have set him up by way of planting evidence. It happens. And again, regardless of how people feel about that statement, it happens. It's happened in the past. It will happen in the future. Sometimes I'm sure that evidence has been planted that has led to a rightful conviction, but in the wrong way. And sometimes it's led to a wrong conviction and people have lost decades of their lives. And we have touched on that on this channel, and I will be continuing to bring stories of people who have lost their lives because of the inadequacies, the ineptitude, just the downright scandalous way that law enforcement can operate. And again, I will say that law enforcement can do things fantastically, and there are always bad apples in a bunch. Doesn't mean the entire bunch is doomed, but it exists. It exists. But look, what I'm saying is they may not or consider that Brent Kopacker is their guy. Now, whether they planted evidence because they thought we know it's him, but we're just not going to be able to get him because we even look at the evidence now and see that it's weak. And it is weak. Some people won't consider that. Some people say it's mountains of evidence. Mountains and mountains. Some thick motherfuckers are still hell-bent on believing there is 51 terabytes of evidence against Brent Kopacker. And I can't help these people. They're clearly absolutely insane. But they could believe in their bones that it is Brent Kopacker. And again, whether that's because of a tip-off, especially if that tip-off originated from someone close to Brent Kopacker, say a family member, again, that's not out of the realms of possibility. We haven't had that confirmed. We've had it certainly mentioned as a possibility. But again, the lines are very blurred between what is right and what is factual at the moment and what has just been put out by mainstream media off the back end of an event. But I've also put here, and this is They know the killer won't strike again. This is number 2. They know that this isn't going to happen again. So there's safety in putting Brian away, because even if they're wrong, they know nobody else is going to get hurt. How embarrassing would it be? How much of a problem would it be if we'd gone down this route and Brian was inside, and lo and behold, there's another attack at another house? And some people will turn around and say, well, no, because if someone's done this crime and they've got away with it, they wouldn't really want to risk doing it again and taking the attention away from who's already been accused. Now, some people may turn around and think, yes, it would be better for this person to look from the outside and look at someone getting blamed for their crimes. But there's always a risk. There's always a risk that someone is looking for notoriety. And what better way to get notoriety than for somebody to do a crime similar to this in the same area? And then it's like, hold on a second, we've got a fucking problem here. We've got someone who, they've now turned down the house is gone. They're hell-bent on putting all this together with Brian Koberger. They then have to explain how they got to where they got, which seems to be a problem and a bone of contention, but it's a risk. So I feel that risk outweighs the reward. Would they do this if there was a chance that this was going to happen again? And that's one that you're going to have to sort of toy with in your mind and make a decision as to whether you feel it is something that they would do and have that risk and probably outweigh the risk versus reward. Or they really don't, they know this person isn't going to. And this is where Brent Kopacker comes into the equation. And I'm not saying Brent Kopacker did anything. I'm trying to justify why my thought process can't 100% rule him out. Because I feel that for those of us who have to or want to play this innocent until proven guilty card, then we have to consider that someone else could be guilty, because you can't have your cake and eat it. You can't say, I believe that there's a possibility that Brian Koberger is innocent, without turning around and saying, I believe there's a possibility that somebody else is guilty, because you can't have one without the other. And Brent Kopacker ticks some of these cards. I see people and they don't like it, because at the end of the day, Brent Kopacker was a decorated soldier. And he, you know, you can't take that away from him. He was a hero. The downside is heroes can fall. He suffered a traumatized brain injury. And sadly, I've seen it. I live around it. For those of you who have been around the channel enough, I could throw a stone from my house and hit the RAF. I live around it. I see what these people are capable of. I see what they do. I see how much pain they can be in and how that can change them as people. I see the effects it has on those around them. I see it every day. So no one can come to me and say, because somebody is a decorated soldier, there is no way that they could do anything negative. Look into, and I've done this, I did this months ago, look into the background of some of the most notorious killers that we've known. A lot of them have military history. But anyway, that's by and by. What I'm trying to say is the only other thing you can consider, and this is number 3, is that they just don't care if this happens again. They're just hoping and praying it doesn't. And if it does, then they'll cross that bridge when they get to it. So what is it? What is it out of these 3 things? Is it that they just genuinely believe that this is the right guy that they've got? Again, by tip-off or by investigation. And we're just not giving them the credit where it's due. And because we have a lack of information, we cannot process the entire picture. It's possible, but I still don't feel that that's enough to condemn a man to death without having all of the answers, and I won't do that. So for that reason, I have to consider alternatives. Live by the sword, die by the sword. I'd rather not condemn a man to death and be wrong than to condemn a man to death and be wrong, if that makes sense. And again, my point being, number 2, do they simply know that this person isn't going to kill again? We're not going to end up with more victims. And finally, do they just not care? The money, the power of the university, the deals being done, the acquisition of Phoenix University, the $180+ million that's worth, is that enough to turn a blind eye, to get the job done, to brush this away and hope that this was an isolated incident and there's nothing else to worry about? Again, I believe that that's potentially why we're seeing so much silence around Moscow, Idaho. There will be people who are thinking this exact thing. And that's perhaps why people daren't speak out, because people don't want to draw attention to themselves. It's easier and sometimes safer to blend into a crowd than to stick out like a sore thumb. But anyway, let me know down below what you think. And I'll catch you all soon, shortly, in a live. If this goes up before the live, this might actually go up after the live. Shall I do that? Yeah, I'll do that. I'll see you all in the live in a bit. I'll see you soon.